Greetings everyone, I'm your host Bill, and today on the channel we're talking college football. Yeah, put those golf clubs away. The college football season is right around the corner. And today in this video, we're going to look at our preseason top 25 and All-America team. So please join us as we have this look before the season kicks off. Okay folks, now getting us started, we're first going to take a look at what we call the next group of teams that we evaluated. We just did not get them into the top 25. You see a nice look here. Missouri's a team that could make some noise, and Washington, of course, and then Hugh Freeze down at Auburn. Got to get things going. They've got Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma over there. Iowa, always tough on defense. Do they now have a quarterback? Utah, Minnesota's another team to watch out for. NC State always seems on the cusp. Syracuse, well coached. You see some good teams in here. We're wondering what Sam Pittman at Arkansas is going to do, along with Bill Belichick over at North Carolina. And watch Pitt. They've got some great defensive players over there. Now, who are some of the teams that are ascending? Georgia Tech is definitely one. Texas Tech, they're using that NIL. They're one. Nebraska looks on the cusp of coming back to some level. And Oklahoma, off their poor season last year, we expect them. South Carolina's rising. Beamer ball out there. And Florida State, my goodness, after last year, they got to go nowhere but up, right? Now, descending, we got Wake Forest. Wisconsin has not played well recently. They need to turn that around quickly. Mississippi State, recent coaching change and so forth over there. Purdue, same thing. Michigan State, wondering if they can get things going. Northwest Oklahoma State, I'm interested to see what they've got going. Now, folks, I can't recall a season like this where so many teams seem to be involved in it. I'm looking at rankings from 11 to 25 when we get to that. Any one of these teams, they all have similar strength, and buddy, they can get in the playoff. Going to be an interesting year. Can't wait to kick it off. Next up, folks, we're going to look at the Super Six. These are teams we had right on the cusp of the top 25, but they just did not make it in for one reason or another. Let's take a look at these fine football teams. We got Iowa State. They're expected to be right in the thick of it in that Big 12 conference. That's an open conference. There's some very, very good football teams in that conference. And Iowa State, of course, is in Ireland to battle another top contender out there, Kansas State, in the game to kick off our season. So Iowa State's a team that can make some noise. They're well coached. They seem to understand what they're doing out there. We like Iowa State. Now, Tennessee, they lost their quarterback, remember, in the NIL battle. But they've made some changes. Tennessee is a pretty good football team. I don't know that they have everything together right now. There are some holes. So we're going to watch the Volunteers. Florida State, what can you say about the horrific year they had last year? They made big changes. Both offense and defensive coordinators have been changed. They've got a new quarterback in there, and they are expected to make some noise. They need to. For Mike Norvell, we expect them to be much better, not the playoff team they should have been in 2013 or 2023, but a much better football team. Southern California, plenty of talent out there, and Lincoln Riley really is in a position where he needs to make something happen. Southern California is not interested in going 6-6 and this kind of thing. So Lincoln Riley's got to get it going. They've got some very electric pieces. So we're watching them. I don't know if they got it all together. We're going to watch them. Louisville is a veteran football team. They've got a great running back out there. They can really make some noise in the ACC. Keep your eye on the Louisville Cardinals. And then Boise State. There's some other fine teams in this outside group that can make some noise, but we just still feel like Boise State, the Broncos out there, are the best of the bunch. We're going to watch it, that's for sure. All right, folks, before we dig into the top 25, we'd like to invite you to follow us over on Facebook. We're at the Color Pageantry. We don't have a heck of a lot of followers over there, but we do update that page with college football information from time to time, so we'd love to have you over there. Beginning our look into the top 25, we have the Nebraska Cornhuskers at 25. Now, Matt Rule, in his recent stops at Temple and Baylor, has really turned around things in year 3, and we kind of expect that with the Cornhuskers. They could be a closet playoff team. I'm not kidding you. They got a strong nucleus of young talent. They've got Dylan Raiola back at quarterback. He had a decent year, but he kind of hit the wall. Dana Holgerson, the old West Virginia coach, came in as offensive coordinator. He's back. They got plenty of work together. They could make things happen. Receiving corps is very strong. They got a couple key transfers from Cal and Kentucky, and they've got some proven targets. A great tight end, their former quarterback, he's a weapon, and 2 transfers on the line. Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame and Elijah Pritchett from Alabama make Nebraska have their best offensive line in quite some time. The defense is attacking. We really like Cam Linhart and Riley Van Poppel up front. Keona Davis is a star. They've got a transfer tackler, Marquez Watson-Trent from Georgia Southern. All this guy does is make tackles. And the Nebraska secondary has been strong for some time. Now, Nebraska is going to be 3-0 facing Michigan. That'll be a telling game. If they can get by that, look out. They've got difficult games at Minnesota and UCLA and a home date at USC. Then they got to travel to very powerful Penn State and host Iowa. This is an ascending football team. They're going to lose a few, for sure. But 9-3 seems about right. And watch this team. Might even be better next year. But a good football team this year and one to watch. At number 24, we have the Baylor Bears out of the very competitive Big 12 Conference. Now, the aerial assault displayed by Sawyer Robinson last year, 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. He's going to return. He's got his top 2 receivers, including Josh Cameron. They're back. And did you see Bryson Washington last year? He's a rising sophomore. He busted out for 1,000 yards last year. Looking, they're going to rock and roll, folks, offensively. The line is experienced. Now, defensively, they've got some transfers coming in that they're very excited about, and we know Dave Aranda knows what to do on defense. So look for the Bears to bite. Now, the schedule's ferocious also. They've got Auburn at home to kick things off. They've got to go to SMU. They've got challenges within the conference, but home games have Big 12 challengers Arizona State and Kansas State visiting Waco. So that's a good thing. Now, this is a tough schedule. We don't know how far the Bears are going to progress overall. We think they're going to score a bunch of points. But even so, you got to think this is a 9-3 team. And if so, they're going to make some noise and be competitive. They might win the Big 12. I don't know. We're going to find out. At number 23, we have the Florida Gators. Now, you see DJ Lagway smiling in the schedule we have presented. Yeah, he impressed the nation last year as a true 5-star freshman, but a shoulder sidelined him. All indications are he's healthy, and if he is, he could take the Gators to lofty heights. But we don't know. We got to watch him. Now, they have a standout offensive lineman in Jake Slaughter at center. He's a national honors candidate for sure. And they've got some young talent on offense, receiving, and at running back. So some of these people are going to have to step up. They really like Dallas Wilson, and a freshman. Aiden Mizell's another guy they look at. And they've got some really good people. And we're looking for Florida to get better on offense, particularly with Lagway in there. Now, the defensive unit, another young unit there, but they're strong. They've got Caleb Banks up front, and Tyreek Sapp is great. They've got some linebackers, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs. These are good players, and Sharif Denson. So these are some great players. And the secondary is also pretty good. Got some young players in there that we're looking forward to. Now, we might have rated Florida higher. Their schedule is just tough. They're going to have to buckle up right out of the gate. They have September road games at LSU and Miami, and those are top 15 teams. They go to Texas A&M, and they've got Texas visiting the Swamp. My goodness, the Longhorns, they're preseason number 1. Another bye they have. They got plenty of them, but they do one before the cocktail party with Georgia. Now, they've got Ole Miss also, and they've got Tennessee, and then whatever Florida State has is coming to town at the season's end. So the Gators are going to be a good football team, but this is a very, very, very tough slate, and therefore we have them at 23rd. All right, folks, at number 22, you want a sleeper, a bona fide real playoff sleeper? You got one in Georgia Tech. Now, Brent Key's done a wonderful job. The Jackets can hang with all comers. They got a Haynes King at quarterback. If he's healthy, the offense moves. Now, he's a running threat, and he does protect the football. Now, the Jackets lost Eric Singleton, wonderful player. He took the cash. He's now with Auburn. But they've got Eric Rivers, who transfers in from FIU, and Malik Rutherford, who was second to Singleton last year in catches. They're both in there. Jamal Haynes, he had almost 1,000 yards rushing, so he's ready to go. And they got a great offensive lineman in Keelan Rutledge, so they're great on offense. Defensively, they bring the sting. Jordan Vanderberg grabbed ACC honors at defensive tackle last year. He's ready to elevate things. Middle linebacker Kyle Efford, he led the team in stops last year. He's a conference honors candidate. They've got a great secondary as well. This is one of the few teams with decent returning talent at each level on both sides of the ball. Now, Georgia Tech opens at Colorado. That's a very dangerous, interesting football game. They need to win it if they're going to have a special season. We think they do. Clemson then comes to Georgia Tech, and Clemson usually plays well against Georgia Tech, but this would be the time if you want to send a message, because Clemson, they look pretty good. Now, they've got some tough games in the conference, but there's no Miami on the schedule, there's no SMU, and there's no Louisville. So only Clemson and a non-conference game with Georgia, only those two teams would be favorites over Georgia Tech. So if they remain healthy, they're probably going 9-3 at a minimum. And if they knock off somebody, look out. They could be playoff bound. Georgia Tech. At 21, we got the Kansas State Wildcats. Now, they got a great quarterback in Avery Johnson, and there were some folks looking around trying to poach him from the Cats. But that talented dual-threat quarterback remains right where he was. Now, he makes plays. They got a great running back in Dylan Edwards and a top receiver in J.C. Brown. So they've got some offensive firepower there at Kansas State. They've got a great tight end, and they've got some transfers up on the offensive line to help. And they've got all Big 12 center Sam Heck in there. So that's a great-looking thing there. Now, linebacker Austin Romaine, he led the team in stops. He's back. And they've got a decent secondary. And we like what the Wildcats are bringing. Now, right out of the gate, as we talked about a moment ago with Iowa State, the Cyclones and the Wildcats are in Ireland. Going to kick it off on a Saturday afternoon at noon over here. That's a big football game. Whoever wins that is going to be in the thick of it for the Big 12 championship. Now, they've got a tough, you've got a roadie at Baylor. You've got TCU coming in. There's, Kansas is a decent team now with Lance Leipold over there. The Sunflower State has got a pair of good ones. But they've got a road game at Texas Tech, which is rough. They do have other games, but they miss Arizona State, who's another one of the top contenders in the Big 12. So Kansas State has a great opportunity. They've got to beat Iowa State out of the gate. Whoever wins that game is in really good shape. And it's not to say that the other one can't contend, but winning that game's a big one. And if the Cats can do it, they can really make some hay and maybe win the Big 12 conference. And guess what? If you do that and you got a decent record, you might be in the playoff. Number 20, we have the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, OU finished 5-7 last year. That's not going to get it done in Norman. Now, talent, especially on defense, even with the loss of the wonderful linebacker Danny Stunsman to the NFL, is on hand. After all, OU thumped Alabama in an eye-opening defensive performance late in the year last year. Now, offensively is where they got to get going, and they brought in John Mateer at quarterback, a bona fide dual threat. He's in from Washington State. Many of y'all might not have seen Washington State, but he had a lot of success up there. Now, the success of this particular move is going to be critical for Brent Venables. He's got to get this going. Now, it needs to be jump-started on this offense, and they brought in Cal transfer Jaden Ott at running back. He could really play a big role. Dion Burks at wide receiver. He's the top returning aerial target. But they do welcome in Isaiah Satinga from Arkansas. Now, the defensive line's nasty. Grayson Halton is in there, and they've got a lot of great players. Now, the coaches are excited about some defensive end transfers and players over there. Taylor Wynn and Marvin Jones Jr., who came in from FSU. Kip Lewis at linebacker's honors candidate. And the secondary will be stout. You got Eli Bowen. He's all SEC. You got Robert Spears-Jennings in there. He's the team's top returning tackler. And Peyton Bowen. So they've shown a lot of flashes. Now, Oklahoma has got to get it going early. Michigan comes calling week 2. They've got Auburn in a close game. Auburn is back is against the wall with Hugh Freeze there. The SEC is just tough. And then they've got the Red River rivalry with Texas. My goodness, they got South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Then they've got a game to Alabama, who's got revenge on the mind. And Missouri's in there, and LSU. Now listen, folks, Oklahoma's going to be a better football team this year. I can promise you that. But this is a tough slate. So 8-4 would be a dynamite success for OU in our mind. At 19, we have Southern Methodist. Now, the Mustangs have arrived. They've posted back-to-back strong seasons in the ACC, and they even got to the college football playoff. Now, directing SMU for 2025 is their standout signal caller, Kevin Jennings, a run-pass threat who can take games over. Yeah, he's back. They've got a great wide receiver and some good tight ends. Listen, the offensive line is really good. Expect SMU to score points. Now, a pair of standout safeties lead an experienced secondary, but the rest of the defense is young, and some talent is going to have to transfer in there or step up. They got a great player from Purdue to jump in at nose tackle, and they got a guy from East Carolina, Zake Barker, who can come in at linebacker. Now, they're great at place kicker. The problem for SMU is the schedule is potentially troublesome. Now, they've got a much improved Baylor at home, and then they got a road game at TCU. Those are tough football games. Now, SMU probably is favored in both of those, but they won't be easy at all, especially Baylor. Now, Syracuse is improved. They're coming into town, but SMU has to go to Clemson. Other top contenders, Miami and Louisville, are at home. Now, the Mustangs miss FSU and Pitt, but we wonder if this defense in the interior can hang in there. So we're going to be interested to see that. But as it stands, we still got the Mustangs going 9-3. They're a factor. Don't sleep on them. At 18, we have Michigan. Now, the Wolverines scored big in the NIL. They outbid LSU for the services of five-star quarterback Bryce Underwood. Now, in the not-too-distant past, it was a long shot for a freshman quarterback to handle a team like Michigan, but those days are long gone. Now, maybe Underwood throws for 25 touchdowns against maybe, say, 10 interceptions, but the reason he might do that is, beyond his ability, is twofold. First of all, the offensive line they have a slight drop-off. But Michigan has great players there and they can run the football. Alabama transfer Justice Haynes could be a game-changing back, and they've got a great couple of receivers along with Indiana transfer Donovan McCulley and Anthony Simpson from UMass. So they got a lot of opportunities there. Max Bredesen returns at tight end. Defensively, they took a bunch of losses, but Rayshawn Benny up front is a national honors candidate. TJ Guy had 6 sacks from the edge. Outside linebacker Ernest Hausman. He's the best defender nobody knows about. They've got a bunch of players there. Rod Moore is back from injury, and if he's healthy in the secondary, he'll be formidable. Zeke Berry and Jair Hill at the corner are honors candidates. Listen, this is a very stout football team, and if they get that quarterback situation going, look out. And that's exactly the crux of the matter. Underwood has got to hit the ground running, as offensive sputters could be costly. Michigan travels to Oklahoma and Nebraska in the first 5 weeks before they hit a bye game. And they're not going to have their coach for a couple of those games. He's been suspended from the sanctions. Only games at USC and home against Ohio State remain dangerous. We don't find Oregon. We don't find Penn State, Illinois, or Indiana. So the table is set for Michigan. If they can get off to a good start, they're going to need to do it. And it's going to hinge, I think, on how Bryce Underwood plays at quarterback. Oh, he'll be fine in the future. But right out of the gate here is what we're watching. Michigan got them coming in right here. About 9-3. We got Ole Miss clocking in at 17. Now, the loss of awesome quarterback Jackson Dart will hurt more than most know, but they've got sophomore Austin Williams. This is a talented player with vast potential. He's turned plenty of heads. He's going to be fun to watch. Now, he's going to work with a patchwork line. They got a couple of transfers set up to come in the offensive backfield. And they've got some talented aerial targets, but this is not the offensive unit that you had last year with the Rebels. Defensively, Zavarian Harris, he gives them a big opportunity up front. And you've got to like Sunthering Perkins at outside linebacker. He's an All-America candidate. R.J. Daugherty, he's the team's top leading returning tackler, and he's inside. So Ole Miss is going to be stout on defense. They are looking for help in the secondary. They've got some transfers coming in, but defensively on the interior in there is where they're really going to be strong. Now, the schedule is another thing. Ahead of a bye week in week 6, with apologies maybe to Kentucky on the road in a home border war with Arkansas, only a game with LSU has the Rebels as potentially an underdog. Now, they got another 6-game stretch ahead of a bye before the Egg Bowl. That stretch has them hosting Washington State, which could be an interesting game, But they got road games at Georgia and Oklahoma and home games at South Carolina and Florida. All of those games are very tough and toss-ups. So it looks like 8-4 for Ole Miss, given the level of experience that needs to be replaced. They really had their shot last year. That was a veteran team that really could have made some noise. They didn't do it, so they're kind of rebuilding, and that's where we're at this year. Well, we got them coming in there where we do at 17th. At 16, we have South Carolina. Now, Beamer ball is rocking. South Carolina had a really good year last year against a very challenging schedule, and even though they're not sneaking up on anybody this year, they're going to make some noise again. Like everyone else, we were really impressed with what we saw from quarterback Lenora Sellers throwing 18 touchdowns last year. He's primed to elevate his dual-ranging game. Now, Nick Harbor, he can get loose. And Mazio Bennett, they finished second and third on the team in catches in 24, so there are familiar aerial weapons to work with. Now, top talented experience is missing in the running game, but Utah State transfer Rashul Faison, he might be the answer, and there are some decent transfers coming in on the offensive line. Now, defensively, up front, the Gamecocks have sophomore All-America defensive end Dylan Stewart, perhaps the number one defender in the country. He's special, and he seemingly cannot be contained. However, other parts of the defense do need help, and they've got transfers from Alabama and Texas A&M coming in there. They've got Sean Murphy, an Alabama transfer at linebacker, and they've got corner Jalen Kilgore. He's a conference honors candidate. So they've got some people, but defensively in the back end, they need help, and they may have got it. Schedule-wise, the first 5 games have potential pitfalls, but all of them are winnable. Now, they need to win them because business is going to pick up. The next set of games has a trip to LSU, home games against Oklahoma and Alabama, and then a trip to Ole Miss. Now, does it get tougher than that? Now, to close, they find themselves hosting the Texas Aggies and then running over to face rival Clemson at home. Now, Clemson got killed by South Carolina last year. We think Clemson's a lot better, and they're going to be waiting, so that's going to be a tough one. But South Carolina's a good football team. Make no mistake, exiting this schedule with at least 3 losses seems, if they do better than that, that's going to be a heck of an achievement. But this is a good football team, and if they shore up a couple of their holes, and I think they're doing it because they're on the ascension. So this team getting better. Beamer, it's got it going. Watch South Carolina. They could really do some damage. Indiana comes in 15th. Now, under their new coach last year, Kurt Signetti, Indiana strongly exceeded expectations and had a season for the record books that are housed in Bloomington. Now, this year, things are different, but Fernando Mendoza transfers in from Cal. I had a chance to see him play in person last year, and he didn't seem to do much for the Bears, but I thought he looked really good. And let me tell you something, that's a better quarterback than you know. I believe that. Now, wide receiver Elijah Surratt is one of the top receivers in the country, a top-flight guy, a candidate for national honors. And Omar Cooper also returns, so the aerial targets are there. The top 24 rushers are gone. But the Hoosiers are looking for Maryland transfer Roman Hembry to step in. And Carter Smith and Pat Coogan are back to anchor a tough veteran offensive line. On the stop sign, Mikhail Kamara, who was a terror on the outside last year. He's coming back for a big year. Inside linebacker Aiden Fisher, he had about 120 stops last year, led the team, one of the top tacklers in the nation. He's a national honors candidate. Ball hawk D'Angelo pounds Bates corners, receivers from his corner position. And he leads a veteran secondary. If you think about all the transfers coming in as well, this unit is experienced and it's going to be salty. Now, the Hoosiers have a tough schedule in the Big Ten, just like the SEC. Road games against solid Iowa early and top competitors later in Oregon and Penn State. That's daunting, those road games. They've got Illinois, UCLA, and Wisconsin. Those are notable home contests. Now, all the opponents have got their eyes on Indiana this year. They all know about them. But it's not going to matter because the Hoosiers are a very good football team once again. Look out. They're 9-3 at worst, we suspect. 14th, we got the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Now, they're a team to watch in 2025. We believe it. We've been fooled by them before, but we think they really are this time. They've really done well in the NIL, and we've noticed a significant expansion in the investments that are surrounding the program, and there's a great deal of experienced gridiron talent assembled there. Baron Morton's back at quarterback. He lit things up last year. 3,500 yards and 27 touchdowns against only 8 interceptions. Expect more of that in 25. Quentin Joyner, he's a USC transfer. He's coming in at running back. They have 2 receivers with over 100 catches between the 2 of them that are back. They got a MAC star, Reggie Virgil. He transfers in. And 5-star wide receiver Micah Hudson. He's ready to shine. They got plenty of tight ends in there too. The line is experienced, but they welcomed in a couple transfers up there on the offensive line. They're going to be fine there. Now, defensively, the Red Raiders are stout. They got Stanford transfer David Bailey. He's in there. He's a very active edge player. And they return all Big 12 inside linebacker Jacob Rodriguez, who's a tackling machine. Top tackler for the Red Raiders, Ben Roberts, he's also back. And the secondary is very veteran. Now, Texas Tech, they're going to be 3-0 before they have to hit the road to play Utah, and that's an important tone setter. Now, after a bye, they've got a 7-game stretch that has winnable home games, but it does include 2 top conference challengers, Kansas State and Arizona State, on the road. The road is the venue where Texas Tech closes their season at West Virginia. Now, if the Raiders can beat Utah, running the table is within reach. Now, they do have the top conference foes on the road, so therefore that seems unlikely, but they can do it. So we're going to go with 10-2 for the Red Raiders. They're a very dangerous football team. They can put points on the board. I'd keep your eye on them. They're a playoff contender. Make no mistake. Number 13, we have Illinois. Now, without the fanfare that would seemingly be present, Brett Bielema has done an outstanding job since taking over Illinois in the rugged Big Ten. He's in his 5th season. He's got quite a veteran squad capable of reaching the college football playoff. There's talented experience found at each level of the team's units. The Illini are set at quarterback. They got former Ole Miss transfer Luke Altmaier. He's elevated his skill set and command of the game under Bielema. Now, Illinois, you know they're going to run the football, and they got a pair of complementary backs to do so. The top receiver is Hank Beatty, and he returns with a unit that has a few guys who are ready to seize opportunities. Watch transfer Hudson Clement, who led West Virginia in catches last fall. Now, there's not a superstar up front, but this is where Brett Bielema gets things done, the offensive line. So don't worry. Defensively, the top 5 tacklers return. Did you hear? The top 5 tacklers return. Sackmaster Gabe Jackas, he's troublesome to account for on the edge. Other teams know this. Dylan Razik, he's 3rd in stops in 24. He's in the middle. The secondary is quite good, and Xavier Scott at safety is an honors candidate. And the team's top tackler, Matthew Bailey, he's the other safety. This is a strong defensive unit. Now, Illinois, the non-con for Illinois is not a problem. They're going to get that done. So in the conference, they miss Michigan, Oregon, and Penn State. My goodness. Wow. You got to like that. Indiana and Wisconsin are on the road. USC and Ohio State are at home. Now, it is hard to look at this and see Illinois with more than 3 losses. And running the table is quite honestly not out of the question if they remain healthy. They're going to drop a few. I mean, Oregon and Ohio State obviously are just very, very good football teams. But watch out. This is a team capable of making some real noise. We got them 10-2. But Illinois, you're not looking out for Illinois. You need to be. They're good, really good. Illinois, right here, 13th. 12th, we have Texas A&M, and you really don't ever know what you got coming with Texas A&M. They have a lot of talent. They don't ever seem to put it together, but they've got a great football coach in Mike Elko, and he has things going well there in College Station. The pieces are in place to have a potentially big year. Marcel Reed could be primed for a decent season as their signal caller leading the show. All the backs return, but Le'Veon Moss is an honors candidate at that spot. And they got a great offensive line, including a surefire All-America. It's just standout up there. The top receivers are gone, but big news. NC State transfer Casey Concepcion. You may not have heard of him, but he's a very talented player from the ACC. He comes in. I guarantee you he can play. Now, the top 7 tacklers return for the Aggies on defense, so look out. The Wrecking Crew might be back. Cassius Howe returns at defensive end, but they're a little thin up front, but there he is. Torian York, top tackler in America at inside linebacker. Scooby Williams returns on the weak side. The secondary loaded. Dalton Brooks and Will Lee, they led the team in passes defended. They welcomed some high-impact transfers in there as well. And both specialists are back. We don't talk about that very often, but that's very important. Now, Texas A&M is going to be 2-0 before they have to go on the road to face Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame's going to be coming off their opening game against the Miami Hurricanes. Now, the Aggies are going to be coming off a bye for a 5-game set. This is going to include hosting Florida and visiting LSU. Those are pitfalls, potentially. Now, they have a 4-game set, a road tilt at Missouri, a home game with South Carolina. We just talked about how good South Carolina is. They got a tune-up with Sanford, but then they close at Texas in a game that could be nationally significant. We always remember back in the day the Aggies in Texas right around Thanksgiving. Now, there's no Alabama and there's no Georgia. Well, that's exciting. Anytime you can miss those two, you're in good shape. Listen, this got to be 10-2 for the Aggies, unless they drop one they shouldn't. They could be in position to do some damage, and that's a good football team. 10-2, the Aggies right on the cusp of the playoff, like so many others. At 11, we have Arizona State. What a pleasant surprise the Sun Devils were last year under Coach Kenny Dillingham. And they busted on the scene, securing a playoff berth and serving notice by taking heavily favored Texas to 2 overtimes and a loss. The Sun Devils are not a one-off. Dillingham is not done. Expect this offense to be potent, with super sophomore Sam Levitt, who had a stellar redshirt freshman campaign, directing the attack. He has a dynamite weapon in All-America candidate Jordan Tyson at wide receiver. Fresno State transfer Jalen Moss and Malik McLean complement the unit. The loss of talented running back Cam Scattaboo is definitely going to hurt, but Kyson Brown and Army transfer Kane Udo are taking over. And Ben Coleman and Alexander Deuce lead an experienced line. Now, the defensive unit was not stellar last year, but 8 of the top 10 tacklers return. That's a heavy amount of returning players on the defensive side. They're going to have to be better, no doubt. And this includes free safety Miles Browser, who led the team in tackles. Now, 2 second-team conference players in 24 also return, and they've just got plenty of talent there. I expect them to be much better. Xavier Alford, he's also a conference candidate at safety, and Keith Abney at corner is one of the best in the Big 12 also. So an experienced secondary, the top tackler's back. Look for the defense to be much better. Now, everybody's going to be ready for Arizona State this year. Dillingham and the crowd aren't sneaking up on anybody. But they got a 5-game opening set that closes with a much improved Baylor and a home game against always difficult Texas Christian, who will be pretty good amongst all the stellar competition in this conference. Now, they get a bye week, but they have a 4-game stretch that should dictate the season as each game presents big challenges. It opens at Utah. They're home for Texas Tech, a top 20 team as we see it, and Houston, always dangerous. And then they're on the road to Iowa State, a Big 12 champion, challenger, no doubt. West Virginia, Colorado, and then home to Arizona close. So they've got some tough games, and we're going to find out. But we don't think Arizona State is a one-shot deal. We think they're going to be very good again, and there's not a lot on the schedule to derail them if they keep their business at hand. So we got the Devils 10-2, probably back to the playoff. Watch out, Kenny Dillingham. What a job. All right, folks, before we get over to the top 10, let's take a look at our preseason All-America team. We got the first and second units here, what we found, what we looked at, and what we saw, what we thought we liked in terms of these players. Fine players all over the place. You can see we're really strong in the wide receiver department. Some really great players. Everyone understands that Jeremiah Smith is just a cut above there at Ohio State. And, hey, Ryan Williams, what kind of plays did he make last year? You know, some of them on national television late at night that a lot of people saw. Wow, what a great player. And then the offensive line, there's some players in there. You see Penn State has got a very good player there and a couple guys from the SEC in there. We like Cade Klubnik at quarterback for Clemson. We liked what we saw. He has elevated his game considerably, and we like that. Penn State has a pair of top running backs. They really got it going. And with that offensive lineman, and if their quarterback can play, now you understand why Penn State is in the very top of the nation. Defensively, a lot of people swarm into the football in this group. We noted Dylan Stewart in our commentary. Clemson has a pair of defenders that are very good. Harold Perkins from LSU, back from that injury. He was dominant as a sophomore. What kind of guy could he be? And then Whit Weeks, the tackling machine there from LSU also. Great players in the secondary. Caleb Downs is as good as it gets. Just great players all the way around. Michael Taft from Texas in there as well. So just some great players, and this is who we identify. There'll be people that we don't know about right now that really come to the forefront and will be candidates to be on the first, if second for sure, but maybe the first team. Some players you haven't thought about. They're everywhere. There seems to be more parity in college football now, and there are going to be some people out there make things happen that we don't know about. I'm going to be interested to watch, just like you are. 10th, we have Notre Dame. Now, Coach Marcus Freeman has seemingly risen the talent level and performance of the Fighting Irish, and the faithful hope that ascent continues. We think it will. Now, they've got a new quarterback coming in. We think it's going to be C.J. Carr, but he is going to work behind a deep and talented offensive line. There are some All-America players up there. They are going to open things up, and they've got a great running back, Jeremiah Love. He might be the Heisman favorite, All-America all over the place. He's running the football. Look out. Now, Jaden Greathouse, another great wide receiver. He led the team in receptions a year ago. He's back. They get a transfer from Wisconsin and another one from Virginia. Those guys are expected to make meaningful contributions. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, the line is inexperienced. They've lost some people up there. They hope that legacy defensive tackle Bryce Young can join in there and get things going. Now, Drake Bowen is an honors candidate, and he joins Alabama transfer Devonta Smith in there to form a stout linebacker core. Now, Leonard Moore at corner is a bona fide All-America, and he's got people in the secondary to help him. They are very talented back there. Now, the Irish are going down to South Florida in the heat to play the Miami Hurricanes to kick things off. Now, the Hurricanes are a lot of bark but no bite lately, but we don't know. Now, they come back. They've got Texas A&M coming in. The Aggies are very good. And then they got to go to Arkansas later. Now, watch out. Arkansas, look out. Now, they also face Boise State. We know what they can do. And they've got North Carolina State, another good football team. They also, no doubt, face Southern California, their arch rival. Now, they've got Navy, Pitt, Boston College, Stanford, and Syracuse. So those are winnable games. Now, we think Notre Dame's still going, but this schedule is a little tough, and they do have to replace some pieces. So we got the Irish going about 9-3 this year, and that could get them in the playoff. We'll have to see how their losses shape up and who they beat and by how much. Have to see how it plays out. They're going to be right there, though. Marcus Freeman doing a great job. Notre Dame got them at 10th. Now, we got Miami at number 9, and we got them right ahead of Notre Dame because they host the Fighting Irish to kick the season off down in the sweltering heat in South Florida. So that's why we got Miami ahead of Notre Dame right here. And there's plenty of optimism for the Hurricanes in 2025. Now, they've never won the ACC. Can you believe it? They've never won the ACC. But they got a ton of potential this year, and that obstacle might get knocked down because they've got the talent to do it. Georgia transfer Carson Beck. He's come over to the Hurricanes, and people expect him to be among the best in the country. Mark Fletcher is a great running back. They don't have a lot of depth there, but that kid can play. They got running backs. Don't worry about it. The receiving core has talented pieces, but it is depleted from a year ago. They're going to have to welcome in some new people. There are people there to work with. They've got a very good offensive line up front for Miami. We expect points to happen. Defensively, Reuben Bain is a top national honors candidate on the defensive line. And they've got talent at linebacker, including their top tackler. He's back. Now, the secondary is poised to have some people figure prominently in there with some transfers that are coming in. So we don't know exactly how it's all going to mesh defensively, but we know that there's some nice pieces there. But the piece that needs to really work is Carson Beck. Can he create enough offensively while the young talent emerges at the skill spots, and then the defense has time to gel? The schedule doesn't allow for a lot of missteps. As we said, Notre Dame comes in, and they've got the Florida Gators coming right next. Now, both contests are tough for Miami, especially the rival Florida. And Notre Dame's a rival, too. Catholics, convicts, remember? Listen, they got Florida State early, too. Now, Florida State, they were terrible last year. Is that going to happen again? I don't know. Watch out. And then they got another 7-game stretch. It's really going to tell the tale. Louisville, very good football team. They go to Miami. Syracuse and NC State go over there. Miami has to go to SMU. Virginia Tech they need to improve. Virginia Tech needs to improve, or their coach might be saying bye-bye. So they're going to be dangerous. And Pitt's got defensive people. So it's going to be tough for Miami. They got talent. They're going to have to put it all together. Can Mario Cristobal get that done? Going to be interesting. We got the Canes making some noise. 9-3. Playoff potential. See who they win and who they lose to right in here. It matters because it's going to be tough to get in the playoff. They're right there. They got to beat Notre Dame. They might. It's hot down in South Florida. I know. 8th, we have the Oregon Ducks. Now, Oregon was prime last season, but although they had a strong season, the national goals were not realized. And Dan Lanning is only more motivated. And his recruiting continues to just excel out there for Oregon. Now in 2025, Dante Moore, who showed flashes of brilliance at UCLA, he's going to be settled in. And he's going to have an elite offensive line to operate behind. Couple of national honors candidates up there. Now, Noah Whittington had 118 carries last season at running back, and he's back. But Tulane transfer Malachi Hughes comes in and gives them a real home run stretch back there. So the explosiveness is featured outside with top pass catcher Evan Stewart, formerly of A&M, joining Florida State receiver Malik Benson. So a couple transfers they're figuring out, and they've got a tight end, Kenyon Salik. He had 24 catches last year. He can expand his game. Defensively, losses were suffered, but it has a chance to be great. They got people returning up front that are ready to rock and roll. They got Bryce Botcher, who led the team in stops last year from linebacker. He's there. Now, the depleted secondary is assisted greatly by the addition of Dylan Thieneman, who was a star at Purdue. You never saw Purdue. He was fantastic at Purdue. He's coming in there. He's a national honors candidate right out of the gate. They also have a transferred Theron Johnson from Northwestern at corner, and he's another fine player. So Oregon putting some pieces together on both sides of the football. Now, they have a 5-game set that concludes at Penn State. This may be the best Penn State team you've seen in decades, so watch out. Now, they do have Indiana, and they visit Wisconsin. These are some tough games. They have Minnesota, who's a scary team, and Southern Cal. We talked about how Southern Cal has kind of got their backs against the wall. Lincoln Riley's got to get going. They go on the road, Oregon does, to Iowa. That's a tough place to play. And the rival Washington. Listen, some people think Washington's going to be very good. We're not quite there yet. We think they got too many pieces, but they're going to be a dangerous football team. Now, Oregon is probably favored in 10 of their games, but the schedule to us is much more difficult than it appears. We still got them 10-2, but we are a little concerned about Oregon, and I feel like it's be more reasonable for a 9-3 than an 11-1 for this team. But they are right about the 9th, 10th, 8th best team in the country. There you go, Oregon. Number 7, we have LSU. Now, head coach Brian Kelly gets a ton of grief nationally, and we no doubt get the reasons why. But the current table of Tigers he has a national championship caliber look to him, and he has a strong opportunity to silence all of his critics. Now, over the last couple of years, Tiger quarterback Garrett Nussmeier has been working hard at his craft, and he's elevated his game to an elite level. We expect a top performance resulting in his position as a top NFL draft pick. Now, they have a great running back returning in Caden Durham. Aaron Anderson, who led the Tigers in receptions last year, he returns as a top aerial target. And Kentucky transfer Barian Brown, also a kick returner, he joins the group. Now, big things are expected from Oklahoma transfer Nick Anderson as well. Now, the offensive line is sketchy because only DJ Chester returns. He's the only returning starter returning, so they're going to have to put that together. Now, defensively, they got a rising sophomore, Dominic McKinley. He is going to be a conference honors candidate before you could ever imagine. Now, on the weak side, linebacker Harold Perkins was on his way to becoming a historic college football defender. after a phenomenal freshman year. He was moved inside, and his performance kind of dragged a little bit. We do consider him fully healthy from an injury, and we're excited for him once again to showcase his talent. He was one of the best. Not only that, Jack Pyburn, another signal caller terror, he's transferred in from the Florida Gators, along with Patrick Payton from Florida State, so they've got some pieces at defensive end. Whit Weeks, an elite tackler, All-America noteworthy. He's back at inside linebacker. Free safety Jaden Gilbert and corner Ashton Stamps, they lead a veteran secondary, including A.J. Halsey, who's coming over from Houston. Now, this is outside of the offensive line, this is a stacked football team. But being very green up there does not bode well. The Tigers open at Clemson, who may have the best defensive front in the country. Now, LSU also hosts Rising Florida, and they travel to Ole Miss in the opening 5 games. They could have 3 losses. Wow. They're too good for that. Now they have South Carolina visiting. A dangerous trip to Vanderbilt. You know, Vanderbilt's claiming they're going to win the SEC. And LSU also has Texas A&M. Now, after a bye, they hit the road to Alabama, get into a dangerous border war with Arkansas, and they close at Oklahoma. Now, we really like the personnel on this LSU team, but the inexperienced offensive front spells trouble early, and the schedule is not forgiving. Now, we cannot underestimate the skill offensively and the top defensive talent on this team, which could shock the world. But much as we like the Tigers, 10-2 would be pretty good. Number 6, we have Alabama. From a quick glance, it might appear Alabama is at some sort of crossroads. Nick Saban's gone, and new coach Kalen DeBoer, although performing strongly, let the average lap time slip a bit from Talladega over there. But DeBoer has solid footing, and the tide can turn in Bama's favor for 2025. Now, a void is to be filled at quarterback, where Tyler Simpson, a 5-star, he looks poised to take in. But is he elite? Super sophomore Ryan Williams, a preseason All-America player, is ready to set fields afire, leading a receiving corps that is outstanding. Now, Bama returns Jam Miller, a tough running back inside. He led the Tide backs in rushing last year. And offensive lineman Caden Proctor and center Parker Brailsford lead perhaps the nation's most talented offensive line. Now, defensively on the edge, L.T. Overton is back to terrorize, along with Tim Keenan inside. Big hoss in there. Deontay Lawson returns at middle linebacker, and he is the team's top returning tackler. The standout secondary is home for several potential national honors players, and they are really loaded there. Now, it's tough to have a favorable schedule in the SEC, but Alabama might have one. They have 3 games to open the slate before a bye. They're opening at Florida State. That's going to be difficult. The Seminoles have talent, and they got to come out strong after the disaster last year. But we just think Alabama has too much right now. So they're going to be 3-0 after beating FSU and a descending Wisconsin. Then they have a 5-game set after a bye, opening at Georgia, which is a clash of titans. The winner there is in good shape. Now they have a revenge game against Vanderbilt. They're at Missouri. Don't discount Missouri. Tennessee at home the 3rd Saturday in October. I don't know if it's the 3rd Saturday in October. I forgot to look it up, but that's what we call it anyway. And then they're home to South Carolina. They go to South Carolina, and South Carolina is very good. So, listen, there are important opponents that come up after the next bye. LSU and Oklahoma. Now, Alabama looking for Oklahoma. And then they've got Auburn, where they visit the Plains. There's no Texas. There's no Texas A&M, and there's no Florida Gators. But they got some tough games. But it looks like Alabama has a favorable slate to work with here. So we're thinking 10-2 here, if they can put it together. Number 5, we have Ohio State. Now, the Buckeyes took an underdog role to win the college football playoff last year. However, that season somewhat tainted due to a puzzling home loss to Michigan. Now, there are significant personnel losses as we head into this year. However, losing highly regarded defensive coordinator Jim Knowles over to Penn State, that is an interesting move, and that might be the most disruptive. NFL veteran Matt Patricia comes in, and he's got work to do on the defensive front as that line's departed. They got North Carolina transfer Bo Atkinson at defensive end. He's going to try to help. Now, the back end of the defense is strong. All-America candidate Sonny Styles anchors the middle linebacking position. Avril Reese is in there, and Caleb Downs among the top defensive backs in the country at his safety spot. They are good on the back end back there. Now, offensively, directing the attack appears to be sophomore quarterback Julian Sayin. And he could set the world afire, but there could be some glitches anytime you're starting a young man like that. Now, among his arsenal is all-world wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, considered the best player in the country, a number 1 NFL draft pick once eligible. He would be playing in the NFL come the opening day Sunday if he were in the league. Carnell Tate is there as well. They have had a supreme receiver unit for seemingly a decade or so. This is no different. Purdue transfer Max Clare, probably the best player Purdue had on their team last year. He's transferred over. He's a national honors candidate weapon at tight end. So listen, Ohio State's going to get going. Now, there's not a superstar on the offensive line, but as a whole, it's decent. So we're not worried about the Buckeyes so much offensively, provided quarterback play is what they expect it to be. Now, defensively, they got some things going. And then on offense, they got some things going. So we're going to see a good Ohio State team once again. Now, they face national championship contender Texas at the Horseshoe to open the season. Texas is going to be favored at the Horseshoe against the defending national championship. Can you believe it? Well, you need to believe it because Ohio State needs to put some things together. And I just don't think they can handle a veteran, ready-to-go Texas team right out of the gate. But if they pull out a win, their quarterback's going to gain confidence. They're going to be ready to rock and roll. Now, outside of hosting powerful Penn State in early November, the remaining schedule will find out if the Buckeyes can win it all. They're going to be favored in all of the rest of them. And if the young quarterback can come through, they could make noise and potentially win it again. I don't think it's going to happen, but we got the Buckeyes 10-2, and they'll be right in the thick of it. Don't count them out. That Jeremiah Smith, look out. Number 4, we have the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, Georgia's been on a heck of a run over the past half-decade, and they continue to recruit extremely well. It's a nice-looking campus up there, so it's reasonable to assume that the Dogs will be right in the fight for another national title. However, this team does have personnel changes to overcome. Now, we know Carson Beck at quarterback left the program. That job is now Gunnar Stockton's. He is an interesting and talented player, but is he elite? We don't know. Nate Frazier's an All-America running back, all SEC for sure, potentially All-American. And Dylan Bell is the top returning receiver, but the Dogs went outside the program. They got Zachariah Branch from USC. He's an electric game-breaking player. They got some other transfers, one from Miami, one from Texas A&M. They got Oscar Delp. He's a motivated player at tight end. And they have an emerging offensive line. So that's kind of unusual for the Dogs. They're usually pretty stout up there. Now, defensively, Christian Miller is the only returnee up front. He's very good. And there's some players with some potential there. And Army transfer Elo Muzi moves in at linebacker over there for the Dogs. Now, C.J. Allen's back in there. They've got some great players. Now, at corner, Dalen Everett is back. And K.J. Bolden as well. Those are leaders in your secondary. The kicking game is very good with both returning starters available. Now, there's a lot of youth here, but Georgia is potentially favored in every game. A less than challenging opening 3-game set ends at Tennessee. That's a winnable game for Georgia for sure. Now, after the bye, they have a 4-game set. Alabama comes to Athens. They take a trip to the Plains to face Auburn, and then they close with Ole Miss in Athens. Now, they can win all of those. Now, after the final bye, the Dogs are going to go to Jacksonville for the world's largest outdoor cocktail party to play the Florida Gators. And they do close in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz, not Grant Field, but Mercedes-Benz in a road game against Georgia Tech. But a visit from Texas to Sanford Stadium is the contest of note. Now, Georgia Tech's good, but Georgia usually handles Georgia Tech. Alabama's good, but Alabama's in Athens. Ole Miss, Auburn, Tennessee, they're dangerous. But this is opening for the Dogs. You know, Florida could get them. There's no doubt. Florida has got them in the past. But this is an opening for the Dogs. They can really make some noise. So listen, with this schedule, with the pieces they got, the depth that they have, the young talent, we got the Dogs 10-2, could be better. And by the way, much like I just said with Alabama, they're going to play all season, so they're going to come together, and they could be really good by the end of the year. 10-2 for the Dogs, 4th in the country. That's what we got them. Third, we have Penn State. Now, the Lions took a significant step forward in 2024, playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Now, the blue and white comported themselves well in that game, as well as in a home loss to Ohio State and in the Orange Bowl against Notre Dame. Now, if Penn State was ever in position to knock the door down and reach for the conference title and a national title, 2025 seems to be the time. Now, some folks are not all that high on signal caller Drew Aller, and we have concerns. But he is a well above average player who is capable of helping talented and veteran people on this team reach lofty goals. And don't count out that Aller could take a big step heading into his senior campaign, elevating his game. Watch out. Now, Penn State seemingly, without question, has the best running back room in the nation with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. Both are certain NFL players. They have a top returning receiver back, but they welcome a pair of transfers, and they could be just really good there. May have elevated that room, actually. Now, up front, the Lions are very strong. 4 returning starters, and they are led by an All-America player up front and a top draft pick. The big news on defense is that James Franklin was able to steal highly regarded defensive coordinator Jim Knowles from Ohio State. Now, the defense did lose their top superstar to the NFL draft, but a tenacious group returns. Zane Durant at defensive tackle is a potential All-America player, and they have terror harassing opposing signal callers from the outside. Now, linebacker Tony Romas, he leads the defense, and the secondary has a veteran presence. Zakee Wheatley at free safety, and they welcome Georgia transfer A.J. Harris at corner. So they've got talented people all over the place, Penn State. Now, the schedule sets up nicely. They have a soft out-of-conference slate, and the toughest anticipated game with Oregon is at Happy Valley. Now, the Lions are on the road to face Ohio State, but they do miss Michigan. The Lions will be favored in possibly every challenging contest, including those at UCLA and Iowa and home versus Nebraska. Now, it seems Penn State will run the regular season schedule, but this veteran team will be a battle-tested playoff team, which we expect to be a very tough out. If that quarterback play gets elevated, Penn State could win it. We got them 11-1, third. Number 2, we have the Texas Longhorns. Now, to the best of my knowledge, I can't recall Texas ever being preseason number 1. But they are in many circles, and Coach Steve Sarkisian has assembled a team which should receive plenty of such consideration as this season begins. So yeah, we're right with those folks thinking Texas is going to be outstanding. Now, there's strong offensive firepower coupled with a stingy defensive unit, so the pieces are in place. At quarterback, the wait is over for famed Archie Manning to take the helm, and he's expected to be among the nation's best. Let's just be honest. Running back Quintravion Wisner is a dual threat out of the backfield, and former top back C.J. Baxter is back from knee injury. Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore are top returning receivers, but much is expected from some rising underclassmen, most notably Michael Terry. Now, they've got transfers at tight end that are expected to be weapons. Up front, they have a great returnee in DJ Jackson. And there is promising talent, but how effective this group is against a high level of competition is the only area where the jury remains out for us. Now, there are national honors contenders at each level of the defense. Sack leader Colin Simpson returns at defensive end. Inside linebacker Anthony Hill should pick up as the Horns' leading returning tackler. Michael Taff at safety and corner Malik Muhammad lead a veteran secondary. And they got Utah's punter, Jack Bowmeister. He was the top in the country. Now he's over at Texas. Now, only a difficult schedule could seemingly derail Texas. And the Horns do have that. Now, they open at Ohio State. Now, they're catching the Buckeyes at a good time. But they do open at Ohio State. And you know how many people go in there and win. Not many. They're the defending national champs. And they're preseason top 5. Listen, after a bye, Texas travels to the swamp. That's a tough place to play, Florida. Look out. Then they play Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry at the Cotton Bowl and the Texas State Fair. Oh, boy. They got a pair of winnable road games that follow and a home visit from Vanderbilt. Then after a bye, they close at Georgia have home games against a pair of rivals, Arkansas and Texas A&M. Holy man. You don't think Arkansas be ready for them? Listen, Texas seems like a playoff team for sure, even potentially number one, and winning one of the top 5 road games over Ohio State or Georgia would be stellar, with Florida, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M all very dangerous games. Now, we think Texas stumbles a bit here, but we think they do get in the playoff, and once in the playoff, this team has the arsenal to take the national title. Watch out for the horns. They are as advertised. And now, as we project our number 1 team in the land heading into 2025, the Clemson Tigers. Now, when Florida State won a hard-fought game versus a veteran Clemson squad at Death Valley in 2023, we wondered if things might start heading south for the Tigers. They were not fans of the NIL, and with rare participation in the transfer portal, it seemed like a tall order for Dabo and the gang to retain their perch at the top of national prominence. While 2024 was not stellar, we did see some positives forming, particularly the improved play of quarterback Cade Klubnik. Now for 2025, the Tigers are a loaded team and a legitimate threat to win the college football playoff. Klubnik returns, and the offense returns several starters to help. Antonio Williams excels at receiver, where the top 3 pass catchers return. The line is quite stout, led by All-America candidate Blake Miller. However, opportunities do exist at running back without heavy proven experience, but Clemson's always had good backs, don't worry about that. The defensive side of the ball is where the Tigers expect to be ferocious. Up front, TJ Parker at defensive end and Peter Woods inside at defensive tackle. Clemson has perhaps the best defensive front in the nation. Both players are preseason, first-team, All-America players. Wooditz and Sammy Brown, 2 of the top tacklers a year ago, they both return an inside and outside linebacker, and Avion Terrell leads a very experienced secondary. So Clemson strong all over the place defensively. Now Clemson faces a talented and well-quarterbacked LSU team in the opener, so coming out of the gate efficiently and composed is a must. Now, the conference opener is just a couple weeks later at Georgia Tech, a very dangerous team that could test the Tigers. But among the expected ACC top challengers, SMU is at home and Miami is not on the schedule. Florida State is also at home. The season state rival finds Clemson on the road against the South Carolina Gamecocks, who are quite good and beat the crap out of Clemson last year. Now, that's one they got to get. There are several potential All-America players on both sides of the ball for Clemson in 2025, so we expect this Tigers team to be poised and make a strong run at the national championship. We like their chances. We've got Clemson 12-0, winning the 2025 college football playoff and claiming another national championship for Dabo Swinney. Clemson, our pick for national champion. Well, folks, there you have it. There's our preseason top 25 heading into the 2025 college football season. It kicks off with Iowa State and Kansas State over in Ireland. Appreciate you hanging with us. This is kind of long to get all this in, and do appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. And, hey, leave us some notes in the comments. Did we get something wrong or way off the mark somewhere? What do you think? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Appreciate it very much, man. We're looking forward to toe-hitting leather. College football is back. Rock and roll.